Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for an upper body day. My schedule got thrown off a little because I have a very important thing I have to do later this morning. So this vlog will be up later because this is going to be rendering and all of that stuff while I do that. But I had to get this started, got started training at 5 a.m. These workouts, for those curious, they take close to 2 hours, right? To do 40 plus sets with all this volume, it's a lot even with the supersetting. So again, had to do this one sooner than normal. It'll probably be up, similar time to usual, but it got filmed much earlier. So a couple minor changes, not really the start of the workout, this is all the same. So some stuff that I'm having to look at. I feel like I was doing delts on off days, just doing the high rep plate laterals in my office. I noticed I did about 7 sets of those yesterday, just approximately. My delts did not feel recovered, and I noticed it when pressing. And so I've come to the conclusion, looking at that, and as much as the lateral stuff is good for the camera, I don't think that I need to be doing large amounts of delt work. I get so much of it in my pressing and pulling and arm work that really I need to stick with what I've been saying, arms. And I feel like even bothering with delts at this point can detract from the amount of arm volume I can get in. Because at the end of the day, what is my weakest link? My whole body, right? Everyone agrees. My arms. And I've said before, I need to get leaner. I need to keep trimming that waistline down, lose the body fat, tighten the skin up. And that is actually happening. You guys will see it later in here. I actually have one of my back at a good angle with me walking. It is slowly tightening up. And I'll probably put that picture up even before this vlog goes up, just to kind of show where we're at on the progress. But that has to happen. Okay, the waistline has to tighten up. And all the other definition will come out more as I do that. And my arms have to get bigger. Okay, arms. Now, because I'm doing so much arm work, and I'm like, I really do need to do 10 sets for biceps and 10 sets for triceps of direct work every upper body day. I'm really starting to think, look, let's not think about arms at all on the pressing and pulling. Let's really focus on, we need to build chest on all the chest pressing. We need to build back. And of course, my delts get hit with all the back work, especially the way I do a lot of it. We need to be focusing on this stuff. So I'm gripping real wide at this point, and I'm keeping the bench in that way. We're doing very soft touch and go. So people will notice and they're like, can we build pecs with touch and go? Of course we can, as long as you're not bouncing. Some of those touches are extremely soft. I am barely touching the skin. That keeps good tension on there. With the pull-ups, I grip real wide. And the funny thing, then when I stand up and people see my lat spread and stuff, then they're like, what do you do for back? I get bodybuilders who do that, but then people don't like the way I do exercises. And it baffles my mind. There's a point where I have to go, look, if everyone thinks my back is thick and all this stuff, and as I get leaner and that waist gets smaller, it's going to look even better. They say those things, but then they don't like how I do my back work. So it's like, make up your mind, guys. But when you look at it, I am going into my stretch position. It's also even harder because of the wider grip to get it to where the elbows and arms are going to look straight. It's just not going to happen. But what am I chasing there? Activation of the lats and the rear delts. And I get that. Okay. What I am doing there with that wide grip, that is what I feel. Okay. And I think people miss that. They get so obsessed with certain parts of the range of motion on a pull-up. And it's like, look, because I have my scapula pulled back, my chest is up, and keep in mind my long arms. A lot of times when people are looking at stuff, they need to remember how long my arms are. I'm not one of you guys with the short T-Rex arms. There's a reason my arms look small, even relative to their measurements. I have super long arms. My ranges of motion are longer than people realize. Like, look, even with a wide grip pull up, look how long that is. Same thing with the benching. I'm almost to the J hooks. Okay, I've got long arms, guys. The stretches I get in these positions is ridiculous, and that's what people forget when it comes to biomechanics. I am an outlier with my arm length to some extent. Okay, so again, it can give me that spider look, unfortunately. But when I do all these wide grip things, the impact in my pecs and my lats and stuff is tremendous. There's a reason I have such a big torso too, because these movements get worked extremely deep in these positions. So when I'm benching flat back like this with this wide grip, someone asked me, where's my grip at? It's my middle finger, right? It's on the rings. So we're not quite illegal wide. We're about an inch away to where it would be too wide to even pass in a powerlifting meet. All right, the pec stretch from doing that is phenomenal. Like the chest pump that I get through my whole chest benching like that, it's great. Same thing with these pull-ups, okay? This wide grip on the pull-ups and going down to where my scapula pull apart. Notice my scapula pull apart. They're not protracted. So people want to argue about ranges of motion. It's like my scapula are spreading. Hey, there's a reason I have a thick back. All right, the lat pump and the posterior delt pump on that is extremely high. All right, one of the things I noticed today too, my shoulders get really tight from doing all of that lateral work. So I almost felt like, man, I can't even touch my chest on the incline today. So I'm like, why bother? As long as I stretch the pec, I'm just taking it down until I feel the pec stretching and just coming back up. And I'm not going to try to injure my shoulders on these sometimes. It's like, look, come in and do what I can. And on the incline, I'm treating it that way. I'm not going to freak out about the range of motion. Again, my arm length, look how long the stroke is on this. I'm getting a deep stretch, and I have days where I can touch the chest and days that I can't. But I've noticed that doing those laterals with the plates for the really high reps, I'm talking 30, 40 rep sets. Yeah, my shoulders aren't recovered. And I feel like it does impact that. I'm noticing that. So I'm going to quit doing it. I'm going to take my off days from just no resistance training. I do 20 sets of muscle group. That's if we don't count rows and presses towards arms, etc., right? Every week right now, high volumes. I don't think I need to be doing stuff on off days. This is a lot, right? It's a lot. For the rows, I went ahead and just did them as normal barbell rows, and here's my logic there. I'm just going to use the rows to build my delts in my back. And yes, they do build delts. I'm doing 10 sets of curls at the end of every upper day. That's 20 sets of isolation for the biceps. There's a point where I go, do I really care about my big, just like I don't care. It's like, let me just grip all this pressing wide and just build my pecs and front delts. Yes, there's going to be some tricep involvement. Same thing with the rowing and the pull-ups. Of course, there's some bicep involvement, but I'm doing tons of curls. Let's just let the arm work, build the arms, okay? Because I don't want to sacrifice back for any of that. And I know we could argue that we wouldn't, but I'm like, this also works for me. So, I've changed grips a little bit back and forth here on this. And I'm just like, let me today, and we'll see how it feels through the next week or so. Because I messed around with the underhand grip Yates type row for a couple of workouts. These feel good. I get a good stretch in the lat. It helps work my grip really well, right? And we'll keep the first half of the workout just to the torso. And then the final 20 sets, let's just blast the arms. Right? Blast the arms with isolation work that works different angles. And that is really what I'm doing. So again, to get the most out of this, I'm doing 10 sets for chest at two very different angles, right? Still wide grip, but we're doing a flat and then we're doing an incline. And again, people will say, that's a partial. I'm aware that from a bar perspective it is, but it is stretching so hard at the bottom. And it's not like I'm doing it to use more weight, guys. I'm using not that heavy. I've used heavier weights and touched the chest. I'm just chasing that pump and that stretch, and that's what I'm getting. And I'm just creating fatigue because I've already done 10 sets of benching. This is to work that other angle to really hammer the upper chest and the delts and everything. And it is working. I'm getting a tremendous burn and pump in my upper half of my chest when I do that. And that's what I care about. Okay, that's what I care about with it. All right, the rows, the same idea. Modestly wide grip here. It's to work the other angles we miss with the pull-ups. It's a little more upper back dominant. So that we make sure we work the delts, traps, and all that thoroughly. And it still hits the lats hard. Because again, I get a stretch at the bottom. I let it stretch all the way down. I spread the scapula. That's the key. Everyone's always like, what's been the key to your back development? Doing movements where I spread the scapula. And it's always free weights. I don't do anything else for my lats or my back. It's always been pull-ups, barbells, dumbbells. Right? Always. And that's all you need. It works. I mean, again, look at my back. Anyone going to argue that what I do for my back doesn't work? I mean, if you do, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, we could argue because my arm genetics are not the best, and I have to do extra work there, which again, I also neglected arms to some extent for powerlifting. All right, we could argue about that, but no one can argue about my back training. Just stop. I mean, even then, look at the lat pump. That is me relaxed because my lats are so pumped. That is my arms down when I do that. Same thing. Watch when I do the incline. Look at the size of my lats. Okay, this is an area I know pretty well. But the trick, everyone talks about mind-muscle connection. Mind-muscle connection is purely about using the form that stretches and pumps the muscle. That's it. It is still about form, not what you're focusing on. It's the form that creates that. Everything I do, I spread the scapula. You know, that came up too. I had someone say, yeah, but you did a lot of Pendlay rows and your back was still big. It's like, my back is bigger now, though. Keep that in mind. I've had some people comment on that with some of the stuff, like, dude, your back's always been good, but, you know, it's getting crazy. Because I'm focusing even more on those stretched positions, those lengthened positions, okay? But I have always, even on Pendlay rows, off the floor, my scapula still come apart. I still stretched the lats at the bottom. And that's a difference. I didn't do them as a mid-range. And sometimes because, again, the elbow, that is my elbow lock. Now, this angle, it looks better, but other angles, it doesn't. That's as far as my elbow's lock. That's just my range of motion. And it always has been. Maybe it's changed and gotten worse over the years. So I get that stretch at the bottom. That really is the key. Now, those are obviously pretty light, but again, I'm fatigued from all the other work. As long as I'm getting close to failure and we're continuing to feel the muscle, get the pump, and get the stretch, that's all I care about. And yeah, they were burning. My delts burn, even my rear delts burn from all that. Just like my front delts burn, particularly from the incline. All right, arm work. Normal traditional Skullcrusher. I think it's one of the best tricep exercises. I finished up with band work. I didn't put it in here because this vlog is over 20 minutes. I did a set of bands to failure at the end. I want to keep the tendons healthy. But something that people forget, they do bring that up. They're like, oh, but they're so hard on elbow tendons, and they can be. I, however, have learned the lesson with them. Don't go heavy. If I can't do 12 plus reps with it strict, it's too heavy. Keep it light and do band work here and there to keep the tendons healthy. I did long phases of band work where I was doing 10 sets of it a workout for those tendons. My tricep tendons are in great shape. A little bit of band work keeps them healthy. I'm not experiencing anything having done Skullcrushers every week. Now, notice the form we use on the Skullcrusher. We rock back towards the face. Yes, it's harder. Yes, it forces me to use lighter weight, but that's where we get that long head. All right, because we get all that lateral head work and stuff on the pressing, but I'm also not doing behind the head because, one, my shoulders don't care for it. I used to do it back in the day. But because this does work the whole tricep, we're making sure we hit all of it, but we are getting that stretch for the long head. That rock back into that more stretched position does that. All right, curls. I'm now doing curls as strict as possible. You know, people don't like the way I curl, and we can make arguments for stuff all day long. So what are we doing here? Trying to get a narrow grip, trying to keep my elbows in. Keep in mind my lat size creates a problem for that. You guys may have noticed. It's really hard for me to do this. I have to focus a lot. But that being said, I'm getting a pretty dang good burn in the biceps doing that, even with that light weight. But I'm keeping it strict. But notice, I do not have it in a wrist curl so that I'm keeping tension at the top. I let the shoulder extend forward a little bit at the top. Why? To make sure the long head gets worked. But I'm doing it very, very strict at this point. And yeah, the bicep burn is pretty intense. Same thing here, like my triceps. The whole tricep lights up when I do that. But again, notice for the curls, yes, I'm going to keep these stricter. Just, again, back work, I will tell people to eat a dick. All right, when they give comments and all this stuff, I will tell them to eat a dick. If my back is bigger than yours, you don't get to tell me I don't know how to train lats. Shut up. And I think that's fair, guys. Come on. And if you look at biomechanically, my back work is good. All right, people complain sometimes about the way I curl. So, okay, let me just do them strict, and then we can just end the complaints, right? Full range of motion, strict curl. And I've had already some people chime in, okay, those two look pretty good. All right, so we can stop the nonsense. But they definitely burn. Now, obviously my dumbbell curls, I'm a little looser, but I'm also doing something a little different. So what are we doing with all this arm work here? So we picked these two really good movements to start, and we do 5 sets of them, right, of each one. But I want to make sure with the next movements that we work a slightly different angle. We want to make sure we finish every function of the tricep and the bicep, okay? So that's when I go to dumbbells. So this is, barbell and easy curl. A lot of people do feel the easy curl is better for skull crushers. It is a little more comfortable. Now, straight bar curls, there is something to be said for these as far as making sure we keep that supine grip. With the dumbbells, it's a little looser with that because, again, I want that rotation, which you guys will see when we get to that. So what are we doing here? Again, very strict skull crushers with that little bit of rock back to make sure that long head gets that extra little bit. It's just a minor detail, but when your arm development is lagging like mine, those little small details add up, okay? People who are genetically gifted in a muscle don't have to think about those things. I do, because, my arms need more work. We all understand this. We all know this. I think everyone, again, agrees. I've had some people chime in like, I don't know, your arms have actually improved a lot, which I appreciate that. But they're not where they need to be. Again, as I get leaner, bigger arms will be a game changer for me. Okay? All right. But yeah, those burn. So then when we go to the other stuff, dumbbells. The other dumbbells are almost too heavy. I managed to squeeze out 12s with these. So then what do? I'm still doing basically a skull crusher, but now I've gone to a dumbbell. We've rotated the grip. Working the triceps to a slightly different angle, but the same thing. This is still an exercise for all 3 heads. But we're getting that long head stretch, okay? But again, because we've changed the grip, what's happened? We're going to work just a slightly different angle. So for 5 of the sets, I want one angle. 5 of the sets, I want another. Now the biceps is a dramatic difference, right? Because now we're going to a full pronated grip, hammer grip, all the way up to a supine grip. Now there is, when you look at it, some people argue about this and they don't always realize technically the hammer grip is a deeper stretch at the bottom, okay? Something else, people are like, why don't you alternate those? Number one, I don't want to take an extra 5 freaking minutes of curling to alternate arms, number one. Number two, I'm losing that little bit of stretch I'm getting if I do that. There's no need for that. There's no need for it. I'm doing a lot of arm work. I need to get in and just get that stretch and get through it at this point. Again, it's the case of, man, we're adding another probably 3 minutes of camera time, arm time, everything else alternating. And there's no real benefit to doing it. Yes, I know it's popular. But what are we doing here with these curls? We are now trying to work all the functions of the bicep. Yes, it can be a little looser, and that's okay, right? Because the whole form is a little looser. So we start in the hammer grip, and then we supinate it up. And notice I make sure that I bring the shoulder forward to a 30-degree angle. Why? That is one of the functions of the long head of the bicep. Now, people will argue, but it only goes so far. You are right. It's around 30 degrees. So the first 30 degrees of forward shoulder rotation, the long head, which is the outer head of the bicep, is part of that movement. It controls a big part of it. It is a primary mover. The short head isn't involved, by the way. But I want to make sure I work that. Same thing with that hammer grip, because we're making sure the brachialis and radial brachialis get worked. But then as we do that, that is one of the functions of the bicep also. It's a minor function, but let's stop and think about that. We can argue, oh, it may add very little. But when your biceps and triceps and everything, like for me, when your arms are lagging behind your torso and you've undertrained them over the years, see where I'm going? Every advantage you can get is probably a good idea because I need to get them caught up. So I do need to be thinking about, well, the biceps' main job is just to flex the elbow. True, that's like 80% of the bicep right there, at least. But are we going to ignore these other functions? On a muscle that is clearly lagging, would it be wise to leave the other functions out when I know that there are muscle fibers that can be worked there that I'm probably not working? Of course we want to do it. It makes sense. Same thing with the tricep stuff. Is that little bit of extra rock back I do on the Skullcrusher for that long head, is there any benefit? We can argue it might be minor, but we come back over to the point when I need to add size to my arms as a high priority. I mean, arm training is getting such a high priority. It is literally 50% of my work sets is direct arm work in my upper body days. Let's make it count. I want to get the most out of it, right? I want to get the most out of it. So we did 5 sets of these. We did 12 plus reps on all of it. All right, 12 plus reps. I barely managed to squeeze those 12s on these dumbbells here. I got 13 on most of the reps, around 13. I think maybe 14 on the first set with the dumbbell curls. And I think the end, I probably barely squeezed out 12 or 13. But that's what I managed to get. Arms were extremely pumped at the end of all this, and that's what we want, right? Overall, though, good workout. Every muscle got worked hard. And I've got a screenshot of me right there when I'm walking away because you can't always see it with the camera rolling as well. It'll show I'm looking a lot better in terms of that tightness in the waistline. All right, guys, but this is pretty much the end of the workout. It's 22 minutes, so I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.